Hey guys, it's me Udav Saswat. Welcome to another video of my channel. In today's video, we are going to learn about application architecture. So this course is going to be a introductory course to application architecture. We are going to look how application architecture is defined, what different tiers we are having in that. So we will be discussing all those things today. So let's get started. Okay guys, so I am having some notes. We are going to study application architecture using these. I will share these with you also. Okay, so what is enterprise application? So enterprise application is a software application that helps enterprises in managing their business related activities. So in today's world, we see that the organizations are very large, such as let's take an example of Microsoft. So if you have used Microsoft Skype, it is a messaging service. So it itself provides support for so many users that if we do not follow some standards, then it will become very difficult to manage such applications. So for that, we have enterprise applications which help these such great or big organizations to manage their business related activities. Okay, so this point is clear. Now this whole enterprise application needs to be divided into some sub levels or sub parts so that it can be taken care of easily. So it will be having different parts and different parts will be handled by different teams so that in the end the whole requirement is met. So how it is done, we will look into that. Okay, so it is basically divided into four particular tiers, which we call client tier, presentation tier, business tier, and persistence tier. Okay, so these all four tiers are having their own specific functions they do. Okay, so for example, this client tier is a browser. So the user will be interacting with our application using this client tier. Provides interface between end user and application. And we have presentation tier. So we will be having some endpoints such as REST endpoints and REST web APIs or SOAP web APIs. Those will come under presentation tier, and it will handle our user requests. So user which is using the browser will come to our application, will hit a REST endpoint, will create a request, will send a request. That request will be handled in our presentation tier. Here that REST endpoint will be hosted. So that request will be managed here, and also the information or the response will be sent back to the user. Okay, this business tier is the service classes. So where the application logic, validations, everything will be there. So based on the, let's say that that particular user clicked on add user and provide his email or those things. So to add that user in the system, the request will come to presentation tier, which will be hosting REST APIs such as add user. Okay, that API will internally will be redirecting to service layer or business tier, where we will be having logic to validate, such as validation such as email ID is valid or not. So what can be the basic validation for such cases, that email ID should contain the at the rate symbol. If it is not there, then it probably is not a valid email ID. So such validations will be there, and those validations will be done here. And after that, that persistence tier is there. So in persistence tier, we are interacting with the database. So once that user details are verified, we want to store that user in a database so that we know that okay, this user is registered and he can log in easily next time. So that particular thing is done in persistence layer, and we will save that to our database. So that interaction is happening in this tier. Okay, that is clear. Now we will go through this point one by one. The same thing I have told you, the same thing is also written here. Okay, so client tier act as an interface to end user and clients such as web browser. Okay, we got that. Presentation tier is nothing but our REST endpoints, which will be handling the request. And business tier is the business logic, business validations. Okay, persistence tier is the part which will be interacting with the database. Okay, and then let's come to this diagram. Okay, so this diagram clearly tells us about the different tiers and their functioning. Okay, so we discussed about four tiers. Okay, client, presentation, business, and persistence. Okay, so coming to the client tier, we are having this browser. So we can see it here. Client is written over here and browser is written over here. So this is the client tier. So the end user will be interacting with with our application using HTTP request. So once the client is interacting with the application, he will, or that user will send a request to our system. That system will be consisting of HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, or Angular React application. So this is called client side application. So all the UI part, which is done through the front end team, is called client side applications. So those consist of HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, and all these frameworks or technologies it is consist of. And that this whole comes under client tier, and this client tier will be making REST service calls to our backend implementation or backend systems, which comes under the presentation tier. Okay, so such as Spring REST APIs is hosted over there in this particular block, and this is called presentation tier. Okay, in this the REST endpoints are hosted, and this REST service call which is made will come up to here, and this particular service presentation tier is going to handle that. And inside the same block, we're having business tier and persistence tier. So in business tier, we are having Spring Core and Pojo. So using Spring Core, we will be having some business validations, business logic, all those using the Spring framework we will be having. So that will come under Spring Core. And Pojo, plain old Java objects we will be having, such as converting from DTO to DAO classes, all those for all those, and letting the data convert from one particular type to another, all for all those, and taking the data along the flow. All these things will be done by Pojo classes that we are having under business tier. And then we will be and we will be storing that in the database, like the example we saw where the user want to register. So that user information needs to be inserted into the database. So that thing is happening in this persistence tier. Okay, and Spring AOP is also a part which is used. So these are cross-cutting concerns which we use. AOP, aspect-oriented programming, we also use. So this whole is called server-side application, and we have almost covered everything in this particular diagram. And one more thing is there. This is called flow diagram in Java. If you have created one, or you will be creating one in the future, so this is how a flow diagram in Java looks like. So we will be discussing that as well. So these are the different tiers explained in this particular flow diagram: client tier, presentation tier, business tier, and persistence tier. Okay, so in this flow diagram, these vertical bars shows a checkpoints, and 1 2 3, these are the flow. So first second third, like that the whole flow will get executed. And these verticals are the checkpoints, and these are the classes, in like from where the flow will move on and how things are going to happen. So the request will start from user. There's the user who is there in the client tier, who is using the browser, and will create or will make a HTTP request. And then HTTP request, so that user will give input data, and that will come to the second breakpoint, which is the presentation tier. So we are hosting REST endpoints over here, and that REST endpoints will manage that particular request. And in the second, it is written as creates a model class with data and invokes business logic on it. So this particular data needs to be converted to a Java object, and that Java object will be forwarded to service layer at the third checkpoint, where that particular Java object's data will be manipulated. Some validation will be done on that particular data, and those things will happen. And if that particular data is invalid, let's say the email ID in our case is invalid, so it will return a response that please enter a valid email ID. Okay, this dotted line shows that in case of error scenario, this particular thing will be thrown back by the system. And if the email ID is valid, then it will go forward. In the fourth point, it will go forward and will convert that particular object to a DAO object, which is called DAO object. DAO is nothing but data access object. So when we are interacting with database, we will be creating a Java object in accordance with the data, which is according to the structure or schema which is there in our database. That DAO object will follow that schema or structure, and we will manipulate this particular object, and we will store it in the database. Once it is done, then if it is a success scenario, then this particular flow will go back and send back a response and display the output to the user. That okay, sir, and that will display the output to the user that your account has been created successfully, and that will be shown to the user in the UI. So this is how this whole flow diagram works in Java. Okay, that's how the flow diagram in Java works. And that's it for today. Let's see you in the next session, guys. Till then, bye bye.